Pump that up. Yeah, we want you to speak in the microphone.
There you go. No, pull it harder.
There's a you can adjust it right there.
Bob, can you adjust that? It's pretty tight. That should work, and then you can. Okay, good. Are we on?
Professional.
Okay, Michael Hamilton, if you're there in Pennsylvania, sorry we are 42 minutes late. Our producer, Father Tattoo's wife, who is 2 months pregnant, was rushed to the hospital with a possible miscarriage. So we thank Ryan for coming in and helping us out today. What we've got is some people who have volunteered to come in, and we're going to get a little bit of their story today, what things were like before, what happened, what was the restoration. Well, first, what was the, if anything bad happened, and then what was the restoration, and how is their relationship with God now. And then later on, we'll bring these people onto the show and hear the whole story so we can use these as promos. All right, so we'll just start. J. Michael McCoy along with Dr. Mike Hartwig, and this is Restoring Hope Live. And we appreciate you listening this afternoon. My guest is Becky Ramsey. Becky, how are you?
I'm good.
You didn't have a very good childhood, did you?
I did not.
Tell me what happened.
My earliest memory as a child was when I was 3 and my 2 brothers, I was a brother sandwich, so I was in the middle. We're sitting at the kitchen table and my mom is laying on the floor and my dad is sitting on top of her putting ketchup all over her face, which she hates. And I remember that moment like it was yesterday.
Was he drunk?
He was just very mean.
Just a mean man.
Just a mean man,
And
yes.
this was your biological father?
Yes, okay. Yes. At the age of 5, then they moved out. And so I had seen all kinds of domestic abuse incidents and things like that. And then he finally moved to California when I was 6. And so I'm 41 now. I've talked to my father probably 20 times in those years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So did he ever pick on you?
No, I was the only girl, so I think I was young. I mean, my older brother saw way more than I saw. So
did he ever pick on the brothers?
I think so. My older brother for sure. For sure. And then about the age of 8, my dad had been gone for a few years and I was sexually abused by my older brother. And
now, did your dad ever sexually abuse you?
No, he did not. He was gone by then.
Okay.
But he would call and ask me how great my brothers were and want to know how they were, never wanted to know how I was. So it just sort of fed into the whole I wasn't worthy.
Right.
You know, I mean, my own dad didn't even want to pay any attention to me, you know. So I don't know how many times it happened with my brother, but it happened.
God loved you.
I did not know at that time.
You did not
I had
know
no
that at
idea.
the time. Okay.
None.
Who was God at that time?
I was scared to death of God.
Okay.
Because God to me, you know, how can there be a God if those things are happening?
Okay.
So
your older brother starts sexually abusing you.
How old were you at that point?
I was 8.
Oh, wow.
And how long did that go on?
I don't totally know. I know about a few incidences, but I pretty much blocked that stuff out. I tried real hard to push that stuff away. About age 12, I got started on drugs and alcohol, and I was a naughty, naughty teenager, just terrible. So I put my mom through the ringer. And
how do you know you were naughty?
I mean, I did horrible, awful things. What I was just going to say was that she looked at me one time. I had just punched her in the face and gave her a black eye, and she said, "You are just like your father." I know. And that was the thing that made me go, oh no.
That was the clarifying moment.
That was I was just as evil and awful as he was, yes.
So did you take that to heart and begin to change, pray for restoration?
Not at that time. I was too young. It's only been in the last 10 years or so that I finally got lucky and found Jesus and realized that God was always there. He never left me.
Right.
He didn't let those things happen to me, but he gave me a story out of those things.
Absolutely.
And so...
Wait, can I stop you? Why did you smile when you said, I got lucky?
I totally got lucky because I found out in my relationship with Jesus what a real man is like. You know, I've learned how... I mean, because up until, you know, when I was 31 years old, I'd been divorced, had kids, and, you know, terrible relationships with men. I had no idea.
Well, where was God in all that?
Not around. I was so angry and so mad.
Now, Dr. Mike, you take preference to her word lucky, right?
Well, she, not the preference to the word lucky, but the way she said it.
Oh, okay.
She smiled almost like to say, it really wasn't luck. God pursued you.
He absolutely did. And I finally... I mean, he'd been knocking and I finally just on my knees said, I cannot do this anymore, and I don't want this for my children. I have 3 girls, and I did not want them to be
what
you
I said
was.
This. I don't want this.
I don't want anger. I don't want them to just think that men are horrible, and I didn't want them to have bad relationships, and I didn't want them to, have no hope. And it took me, honestly, to change me before they would ever get that,
Sure.
And that change happened.
That happened. I walked into my church, and I swear there's probably scratch marks in the cement outside as I'm dragging myself in this church, but I had to do something.
Right.
And I got in there, and people were nice, and they were wonderful, and they looked me in the eye. Nobody ever looked me in the eye. I was always looking at the ground, but nobody ever looked me in the eye because I was scared that they would see what was really in there. And so, these people were fantastic, and just the links in the chain started to come together. And they played Jesus Take the Wheel at this church service one day, and I sat there and just bawled.
Yeah.
And I looked at my kids, and they were like, "What is wrong with Mom? She's going off the deep end." But they are as in love with him as they could be. They've learned, and their lives have changed, and so I've changed.
How was your family life changed compared to what was happening when you were growing up?
As for my kids, you mean? Like what's different for them?
Right.
They understand what a good parent looks like. Like my mom was a good parent. She just worked really hard to try and fill the gaps, and she had to work 60 hours because my dad didn't pay child support, so she was never around. So my kids have learned, what a real parent should be. They go to church. They have good friendships. Like I didn't have good friendships. If any of my friends or any people that I met had dads, they were out. I was not talking to them. They had to be in my same circumstances, or I was done.
Were you a man hater?
Oh, I hated everybody.
But you got married.
I did because I thought that was the only way to get out. I thought that was going to save everything, and it was a bad choice.
Right.
But
yeah.
So you got a divorce, and then you got remarried.
I have gotten remarried. Yes.
Okay. And tell me about that relationship.
Oh, it's wonderful. You're going to laugh because this is probably not what I should say, but I double dog dared God to show me what a real man looked like. And I sort of laughed when I did it. I'd already been going to church for a couple years, and my kids were going to Sunday school, and their Sunday school teacher was Mark. And
Mark
they kept saying,
my
current husband, they kept saying, "You got to talk to Mark. He's so nice. We just love him. We love him. We love him."
That's
and I'm
what
like,
your kids
"No."
were saying?
Yeah, and I turned around, I was going the other way.
Sure.
And, he would say hi or whatever. I'd be like, "I got to go." And then I prayed this prayer one day, just sort of as a joke between me and God,
And you actually said, "I double dog dare you, God."
I think I said, "Dude, I double dog dare you."
You call God a dude.
We have good conversations. Good. I just said, I don't think there's anything like that. I don't think that there's anybody out there that, and I think he took the challenge and absolutely provided. And my kids have such a good relationship with him. They do with their own dad as well, but such a good relationship with him. It's just.
So does he like ketchup?
He does. Yeah.
How did you and Mark come together? How did you begin to communicate and have a relationship?
It was really just through the church. We started volunteering at the same sort of event, so our paths kept crossing, and
that'd be the double dog dare.
Yeah, and he kept saying, "Hey, let's go play pool, or let's go just hang out. I don't want a relationship. I just want to be friends." And I was like, "Okay, well." And then one night we were playing pool, and he said, "Someday I want to get remarried." I said, "Well, I'll be your wingman, but I'm not interested at all." And so that's the joke between us now, is that I turned out to be his wife, not his wingman. But and so we just sort of had a good friendship. And I never had a guy be a friend before a relationship before either. So that was.
Let me ask you this. If there was a defining moment when you realized he was a real man, when would that be?
There's so many of them, but probably the first one was when he opened a door for me. Wow. And I said, "You don't need to do that. I can open my own doors. I don't need you to open my door." And he said, "You know what? As long as you're with me, I'm going to open the door. So get over it." And I thought, that at the same time, I'm sort of struggling with myself, like I can take care of myself. But he wanted to take care of me. He wanted me to feel like, I didn't need to open the door. And so then it was slowly, just
sinking in.
Yeah, just the little things. He says nice things.
So God is listening right now.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you know that.
Oh yeah.
Well, what do you want to tell him?
Thank you.
For
Thank
what?
You for turning my shame into my story. Because for my whole life, it was shame. I was ashamed of myself. I was ashamed of my family. I was ashamed of what I'd been through. I was angry and mad and horrified. And like I said, I would always look down the ground. I never looked anybody in the eye because I was afraid somebody would see what was inside. And God turned that around to show me that what I have inside is worth sharing and it's worth telling other people about it. And I've found, that like out of 100 people, 6 women have been abused like me. And so my whole life I thought I was the only one. Like, how ridiculous is that? Right. But I really thought that. And so it's sad, but that's what he showed me. Like, you're not the only one, so don't be stuck in that you're alone thing.
Yeah, and God loves you, and he loved you all along, and he was with you all along.
He never left me. He never forsake me. Nothing. He was always there.
Well, Becky, I'll tell you what, I appreciate you sharing your story, and we call that your testimony. And I thoroughly believe with all my heart that your testimony is your DNA with God. Mm-hmm. It's that one thing that connects you, and by you sharing it, you probably just helped another woman out there listening who said, I don't need to put up with this shame and guilt either, and I'm going to find Jesus.
I hope so.
Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
all right,
Becky.
that was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good job.
You can hang around if you want for a while, but Miss Amy's going to come over.
Are you next?
I guess I'm next.
Yep. You're the only 2 live. Everybody else comes in on the phone today. So Whitaker must have thought it was kind of cool that he was on 2 days ago, and now you're on today.
Well, I didn't get the chance to tell him because he was running around like crazy today. So I just said, I'll tell him Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do have to go. So thank you
okay.
very much. Just let me know what
I will.
you need me to do.
Thank
How old
you
are
very
your
much.
kids?
I have a sophomore in college, and then a stepdaughter who's a junior in college, and then I have a
Wow.
9th grader and a 7th grader, all girls.
Oh, wow.
Well adjusted.
Wow.
That out, didn't he?
Yeah. Well adjusted.
Absolutely. Good heads on their shoulders.
Never got punched in the eye, have you?
No.
Good.
Don't push them back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, and you're watching the chat in case Mike Hamilton pops onto the chat.
Right.
Nobody's on there, though. Okay. All right. Today we're talking with Amy Polpeter, and you notice I knew the name.
I
and
know. I'm
didn't-
so impressed.
Yeah, thank you. I just I got her name wrong. She's been on half a dozen times, and I get her name wrong every time.
Every time he asks me before we start, now, how do you say your last name again?
Yeah. And congratulations on expecting yourself.
Yes.
Due April 2nd.
April 2nd, yep.
Comes the day before, you'll have an April Fool's baby.
I know. My husband is really hoping for that.
Yeah, I bet. That'd be fun.
Boy
Yeah.
or girl?
Boy.
Oh, you already know.
You know.
Yep, we know.
And what's its name?
We don't have his name picked out yet. We have kind of a list.
I'd
but-
recommend Mackenzie, and then he could be Mac.
Sure.
Great name. All right, so you have one of the greatest stories in the world, and I love hearing it. And every time I hear it, I hear something new in it. Tell us your little story.
Well, basically, I'll start off by saying that when I was growing up, I grew up unchurched. It wasn't really that I didn't believe in God. I just didn't really have a relationship with him. It wasn't a part of my life. My parents both had went to church as younger kids, but then as they got older, they both had kind of separated from the church. And I think there was some contention because there was different faiths between the two of them, different denominations, both Christian, but different denominations. And so they chose to raise their kids kind of unchurched. And my mom has since said she regrets that. But she, so I grew up pretty much unchurched. And when I was in high school, I had started dating a guy when I was probably about 14, 15 years old. It was someone my brother had introduced me to. Basically, there was someone else that my brother didn't like who was showing interest in me. So my brother introduced me into someone to like intercede. We dated for a couple of years, and looking back, I realized it was a completely unhealthy relationship for any time in someone's life, but definitely for a teenager.
What made it unhealthy?
It was unhealthy because he had a lot of control over me. He was very manipulative. I had very low self-esteem at the time, and he kind of furthered that low self-esteem, but did so in a way that I thought in my young age that it was a compliment. He would make comments like, most guys wouldn't be able to see past your nerdiness to like you, to want to be with you. But I see past that. I can see past that. I can see how great you are, that type of thing. But he made me feel like he was the only person who would ever want me.
Okay.
Was kind of how the relationship went. He ended up breaking up with me in my sophomore year of high school. And of course, being a first love, it broke my heart.
Yeah.
Crushed me. It took me a couple months to kind of find my footing again and start moving on and start, realizing, hey, I can have a life without this person and I can be single and that's okay. And then the following year, at the beginning of my junior year, I became the victim of a lot of harassment and bullying at my high school my dad was on the school board, and the superintendent of the school board, as well as some other members of the school board, kind of were rallying against him. He was exposing some things that they were doing that wasn't real cool. A lot of embezzlement, a lot of adultery was going on. And so as he was exposing that, they were using their kids to bully me in the school. Plus, there's bullies in every school. There always are.
What do you mean by bully? I mean, were they punching out, calling you names?
Most of it was verbal. Most of it was calling me names, putting stuff on my locker, writing things on my locker. And of course, that was in the 90s, and they didn't know a lot about bullying then. So like kids would write something on my locker, and I would have to stay after school to clean up my locker. That was the school's rule. Mm-hmm. You know, things like that. They kind of punished the bully, or the bullied, the kid being bullied. And plus there was bullies in every school, and I kind of got pegged as the victim. I tried not to show that I was bothered by it, but I did. I wear my emotions on my sleeve and always have. And so, you know, other kids would also pick on me as well. And during that time, this guy that I had dated, who had been a close friend, called me up and said, "Man, I miss our friendship."
This was the guy that broke up with you.
This is the guy that broke up with me.
Okay.
And he said, "You know, I miss our friendship. I've heard what's going on. Do you want to come over and just hang out?" And I was like, "Man, I need a friend right now, like a lifeline." Because the friends that I had at my school, it wasn't that they weren't being my friends, but they didn't want to be found guilty by association. Yeah. So they kind of avoided me at school. Not intentionally, not trying to be mean, just that's what kids do. And so I was like, man, I really need a friendship. But I wanted to tell him, and I told him several times on the phone, I said, "But I want you to know, I just want a friendship. I don't want to get back together with you. I don't want to date you."
Did you have a physical relationship with him before?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was something that, he had always pushed for. And I didn't realize it till many years later.
I used to be a boy. I know how that is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they can be very convincing when they want to be.
We're terrible.
Yeah. I'm going to raise my son differently now.
Please
I can hope.
Yeah.
But so no, he had called me, and I said, "Yeah, I'd love to come over. I'd love to see you again, have this friendship. Just know that I don't want to date you." And essentially by saying that, I was like, "I don't want to have sex with you the way you convinced me to when we were dating." And so eventually our schedules worked out, and I went over to his house. And
do you feel like he made that, or he took that as a challenge?
I've never thought of it that way. He might have. He didn't seem to at the time, but he certainly might have.
Okay.
But I went over to his house, and, basically we walked in the door, and I said hi to his mom. His mom was a school teacher. She was grading papers at the kitchen table. And we went down to where we always hang out in the basement, in their basement living room type thing. And I remember as I walked in, I actually had purposely left the door to their basement open, which teenagers normally, when they're going to the basement, they shut the door. And the parents usually open it back up. But I had purposely left it open. I remember him reaching beside me and shutting that door. And I was kind of like, "No, we can leave the door open." But he didn't. And that to me now is a very clear warning sign. At the time, though, totally didn't see it. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking that night, and eventually by the end of the night, he had raped me. And I won't get into all the details of how he raped me, but basically, he kept, every time he would make advances towards me, I'd say, "That's not what I want. I don't want to sleep with you. I just, maybe I should go home. If that's what you want, maybe I should just leave." And he would convince me to stay and, apologize. "Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant to do. That's not what I'm trying to do." And so I remember at one point during that night, I was actually so proud of myself because I was sticking to my guns and saying no. And I'd always given in when we were dating. And so there was this part of me that was so proud because I was like, "No, I'm not going to give in to you this time. You're not going to convince me." And, of course, unknown to me, it wasn't going to matter. He ended up holding me down and raping me. I didn't tell anybody right away when I left his house that night. I didn't tell my parents, didn't go to the police or the hospital or anything. Basically, really didn't do anything you're supposed to do as a rape victim. Because at that time, I didn't see myself as a rape victim. I didn't meet the stereotype of what a rape victim was.
So were you beating yourself up for, I should have never gone down to the basement, should never close the door,
I don't know if I was even at that point yet.
Yeah.
I just was thinking, in my mind, a rape victim was a girl who wore, provocative clothing or was out drinking or was a party girl. And I was none of those things. So it didn't even occur to me that, wait, I knew in my heart it was wrong,
right,
but I really wasn't ready to call it rape yet.
So did he go back to school and start bragging to his friends and all that?
I don't know, because he went to a different high school.
Oh,
so
okay.
if he did, I never heard about it. But luckily, I didn't have to face him every day, which was helpful. I mean, at least I was in a different school, so I didn't see him on a regular basis. I actually ended up graduating at the end of that year, which it was my junior year, so I graduated a year early. Went off to college and started becoming interested in a guy that I met there at college, and realized really between the time of the rape and the time that I met this guy, I had just pretended it didn't happen. I was just like, if I pretend it didn't happen, it'll make it all go away.
Right.
The whole denial stage. And I realized as we were dating that this other guy, I was like, this is going to affect me. What happened to me in high school is going to affect me, and I need to tell him about it. And so it took me a while to get up the courage to say anything. I joke that I have impeccable timing, because I always kind of pin guys down at that time when I would tell them about what I'd been through and about the rape. And so we were driving in a car on a 2-hour trip back home to meet. He had met my parents once, but he was meeting the rest of my family for the first time that night. And as we're driving, I decided to lay this on him and tell him what I'd been through. And I didn't describe it as, I didn't say I was raped. I described what happened. I described what the guy did to me. And the guy that I was in the car with, this first boyfriend in college, was really quiet for it was probably somewhere around 30 to 45 seconds. It seemed like an eternity.
Sure.
And I finally was like, well, are you okay? Or what are you thinking? And he just looked at me and he goes, I never thought I'd know the one. And I was totally confused by that and said, what do you mean? Like, that wasn't at all what I expected him to say. And he's like, I've always heard that 1 in 4 women is raped. I just never thought I'd know the one. Oh. And so he was the first person who ever called this crime rape. And kudos to him for knowing that. I mean, he, as far as I know from talking to him, because we ended up dating for a couple of years, I don't know that he had known anyone else in his life who...
But you didn't go on and marry him.
I didn't go on and marry him.
Okay.
We dated for a couple of years, and then our relationship kind of played its course, and we separated and went our separate ways in college. And then after that, I met the guy who's now my husband. But I really credit this first guy, and since I don't have his permission, I won't say his name. But I really credit him with starting my healing journey, because he's the first person who called it rape and made me realize this is something I have to deal with.
Where's your journey with God on all this? I mean,
my journey with God really hadn't started at that point yet.
Okay.
It started about, that was when I was 18. So 18, 19. My journey with God started when I was 24. So it started several years later. I had healed quite a bit from the rape at that point. I'd really actually started to process it and things like that. And was out of grad school, was working full-time, and just kind of started having questions about faith and the fact that I had never been raised in a faith. And my mom, I was single at the time. The guy that I met in college, who I later married, him and I broke up for several years. So I was single at the time, and my mom kept saying, maybe you should try out a church. And she was really doing it because she wanted me to meet some nice guy at church. But she kept saying, why don't you try out a church? And I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. I was like, Mom, at that time I was living in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm like, I am in the middle of the Bible Belt. There's a church on every corner.
Right.
I don't even know where to start, what church to go to. I knew there was a couple of faiths that I didn't have good experiences with when I was younger. One of those being the Catholic faith, just because every time I went to it, I always felt like an outsider. I had a lot of friends who were Catholic, so I'd spend the night with them on a Saturday night, go to church with them on Sunday morning. And I felt like an outsider, so I knew Catholic wasn't where I probably wanted to start out. But I definitely, didn't know where to start. And it was kind of by sheer luck or God's design. I met a guy that I did date him for a short time, but we had a very short relationship, only about 2 months. But in those 2 months, he was very open about his faith, and he was a very strong Christian. And it was through him that I started going to church. And it was shortly after I started going to church that we broke up. But I, continued going to church.
I'd call that a God thing.
Yeah, the church part stuck. The guy didn't stick, but the church part stuck. And about 6 months after I started going to that church, I was part of a singles Bible study group. And I was one of the facilitators for their lessons, mainly because they picked the new people to facilitate because they weren't smart enough to say no. They didn't know enough to say no at that point on facilitating. So it really is proof also for anyone out there who thinks they can't facilitate a Bible study. You don't have to have a lot of knowledge to do so. And I was preparing for the study I was supposed to lead the next week, and it was on forgiveness. And it's almost a God thing, too, that I was even preparing a whole week early because I was in my early 20s, and early 20s don't plan ahead. And so normally we prepared our Bible study. If you were the facilitator that week, you were preparing at 8:30 that morning for the Bible study that started at 9. But I actually prepared a whole week early. And when I was looking at it, I just became very convicted because so much of that study was on forgiveness. And I knew that I hadn't forgiven the guy who raped me, nor did I want to at that point. I really had no desire to. And so I felt like a total hypocrite and trying to lead the study on it. And I also, in a lot of ways, I tend to be a perfectionist, and I felt like I was failing at being a Christian. I was like, I'm 6 months into this, and I'm already failing at it because I can't forgive somebody for what they've done. So I called the other two facilitators in our group and said, and kind of explained the situation. One of them knew that I had been raped. The other one didn't, and I told her about it. And said, what am I supposed to do? How can I lead a Bible study on forgiveness when I have all this unforgiveness towards this person and probably always will? And they gave me some great advice. They first suggested I talk to one of the pastors, but I was so new to the church, I didn't really feel comfortable talking to the pastors yet. That was still very scary for me.
Sure.
To be around a pastor. And so I turned them down on that. But then they gave me some advice, and it stuck, and it's something that I've really remembered ever since. And that was, I can't forgive if I don't want to. And they're like, and it's completely understandable that you don't want to forgive him for this. What he did was wrong. And they said, start with asking God to change your heart. To ask God to help you to want to forgive, to have the desire to forgive.
Forgive your rapist.
To forgive my rapist. And so start with that. And they said, once you have that desire, then you can start asking God to help you with the forgiveness. And you can't do it alone. It's not something that you can just trudge through on this and do it by yourself. You've got to, rely on God and rely on God's help. That's the only way that forgiveness is going to come. And it didn't come overnight. I mean, it was something that became my daily prayer. Every day, part of my prayer was, at the beginning, it was, God, help me to want to forgive this guy. Teach me how I could possibly want to forgive him. And for months, that was my prayer. And eventually I realized I had actually, it came true. I actually did want to forgive him.
Why?
I think because I realized that the forgiveness wasn't necessarily about him, that the forgiveness was maybe more for me than it was for him. And so I realized, this is something I need to do for myself, not necessarily for him, not necessarily that I'm going to contact him and tell him.
So how do you know you've forgiven him?
I think it's by just the feeling in your heart. First of all, I started praying to God, asking him to help me to forgive him, because even when I wanted to, I really wasn't at the forgiveness. And I think I really realized I had forgiven him just shortly after I moved here about 6 years ago. I'd finally joined the Facebook revolution and got a Facebook page. And this guy had actually contacted me about 6 years after the rape. And so I had always avoided social media and stuff because I didn't know if he was still out there, if he was still trying to find me. And he made some comments in some conversations I had with him that...
So you friended him?
I didn't friend him on Facebook. No, he had contacted me by phone.
Oh, but how do you know? How do you know you've forgiven him?
The way I knew I'd forgiven him was another friend on Facebook had put a picture of us up from high school, high school dance picture. And when I saw that picture, I wasn't expecting it, and it did kind of take my breath away. It kind of knocked me back a bit. But I realized I didn't have anger. It wasn't that I was filled with anger when I saw it. It was that I just was filled with some remorse over what I lost in that relationship, but not anger. And so that's kind of when I realized I really have forgiven him. I think it became even more apparent to me when I told my parents about the rape, which wasn't until just about 2.5, 3 years ago.
Wow.
When I decided to start speaking out, which is a whole testimony in itself as to how that happened. But when I talked to my parents about it, my parents were very angry. My mother is the type of person who, I love her dearly, but she can hold a grudge with the best of them. And she wants revenge.
Let me go back to this other question. I mean, get back to this whole line of
Mike,
forgiveness.
make sure you're talking into the mic.
Okay. Let me go back and ask you some things about the forgiveness. Okay. So if I understand this correctly, you came to a point where you understand that you needed to forgive him for your sake.
Yep.
But why?
I think because I realized that without forgiving him, I was still holding in the anger.
And what's the end result of that?
Of holding in the anger?
Yeah.
It holds you back in life. It really does.
So if I can summarize what you're saying, what I'm picking up is that when you fail to forgive people, it impacts you in a greater way and impacts all your other relationships.
Absolutely. It goes on to other relationships, and it just it impacts how you interact with other people.
Right.
And even though I thought that I had really healed from the rape and I thought that I had an ability to trust, I realized I really was struggling to trust people because it's like, well, this guy hurt me, so
it's interesting because in the scriptures it talks about Christ talks a lot about forgiveness.
Absolutely.
And one of the basis of forgiveness is realizing that you've screwed up too.
Yeah.
And the only way that you're going to ever be, any of us are ever going to be able to forgive anybody is realizing that we've hurt other people. Maybe not to the degree that this guy hurt you, but if we don't ever understand that our frailties and our things, then it's going to be a real problem for other people too.
Absolutely.
And it's going to impact all of our relationships.
Absolutely. And I can definitely look back in my life and see times when I hurt people in my life because of the hurt that I was feeling from this past, experience. And I think when I really knew I forgave him was after I told my parents, they were angry. And my parents were actually going back to my hometown. They had moved here to Ankeny at this time. They were going back to the hometown, which is where he still lived. And my mom was actually making some threats towards him that she was going to go find him, that she wanted to, confront him. And I don't know what she thought she was going to do. And this is something my husband and I had actually discussed as being a possibility. And I went home that night after that conversation, and I was crying and I was upset, and I was talking to my husband. I was like, I have to pray for his safety. It was like never in a million years did I think I would be praying to God to protect the guy who at one time raped me. But I was like, I have to pray that my mom doesn't do something stupid and hurt him in any way, or do something that could cause, ramifications for him. And really, I was also thinking at the time, my own career being in law enforcement, if my mom goes out and, hurts somebody, this is not a good thing. And it's really interesting because my parents went to Council Bluffs. That's where my hometown was. And they went there. They only stayed a couple hours, and they said they couldn't really be in the same town. And they came back here to Ankeny. And so they never sought him out, even though my mom knew where he was.
Well, Amy, thanks for coming in.
No problem.
Sharing your story. We always learn something new every time you come in. And we thank you for being part of Restoring Hope.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Amy.
All right, now we need to call some people.
Yeah.
Once you write down phone numbers.
You bet.
Ryan, you call these people and get them on the air.
Do you want to call my friend from Iowa City that has the story of being assaulted as well, or do you want to do that another time?
We'll do it another time, I think.
Okay.
Because we're running late today.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Mike, are you still there in Pennsylvania? I guess the only way you tell me that is if you got it back on chat.
Let's go on. Who should I go first? Let me go with Watson.
He's not on. He's not on.
Oh, okay.
He's not logged on anyway.
Okay.
720.
How many people are you going to be calling?
You're going to be calling 3. This is Diane.
All right.
Okay, so there's that one.
Okay.
And I'll give you a couple others here.
Just hold it.
Yeah, just go ahead and call her first.
How long do you think this is going to take back?
Probably another 25 minutes, 30 minutes. You need to be gone at a certain time? All right. Whose name? M-I-C-H-A. Oh, he didn't misspell my name.
Doesn't matter.
Michelle? Am I Michelle McCoy?
It's like the French spelling of it or something.
Michelle. Oh, Michelle.
Michelle, my belle. Leanne's texting me here.
Is she watching?
Yeah.
Hi, Leanne. How's your foot?
It's her knee.
Oh, it's her knee. Oh,
Knee.
that was her foot.
No. How are we going to hear Diane?
You're going to put your headphones in.
515, yeah. This is one from St. Gregory's.
Okay. And we're talking to the mother?
Yep.
Okay.
Her name is Diane. Hello. Testing one. Here. What?
720-4344.
Let me go here. Recent. I just got off the phone with her. Dan wants a ball. Hey, Diane. We just tried to call you. Yeah, what's your number? What number you want us to call you?
Who's M. When?
What number is that? 720-4344?
We will talk all about the show on Monday.
720-4344. Okay. All right, I'll give it back to him. Hold on. Hold on. I'll hang up. Yep.
I don't know.
What's his name?
Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
Matt,
720-4344.
You know what M. Hammy?
Hammy?
It says, Mac, it's me, Mike. I'm headed out. We'll talk. Good
Oh,
show.
Mike Hamilton.
Okay.
Oh.
He changed his name on here.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much. Sorry we were late running.
How long ago did you send that?
Just now.
Let's talk about the show on Monday.
Yeah.
All right, see you. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah.
We good?
What? Type in there that we will have 5 different shows sent to him via his email.
Test. I'm not sure I can hear myself. Hello? Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can, I think.
All right, push the button on the back. See it right there? Yeah. Does that make a difference? You
say something, Diane.
Hello.
Hi, Diane. How are you?
Good, thank you.
You're going to change headphones?
Yeah.
Okay, it's probably the little gold plug that's not working right.
Yep. Let me see this.
Okay, Diane, we're just having a little headphone issue here.
That's fine.
I got it in here.
Okay.
I got it. Hey, hi, Diane.
Hi.
All right, we're recording, so.
I'm J. Michael McCoy along with Dr. Mike Hartwig today in RestoringHopeLive.com, and on the phone with us is Diane. Diane, how are you?
Good, thank you.
We thank you for joining us today. We understand that you had a wonderful experience in the end, but certainly a difficult time with one of your children as they were growing up.
That's exactly right.
Tell me about that.
Well, our son was in high school. In junior high and elementary, he was fun-loving, easy to get along with. And as he got a little older, we noticed that there were some changes happening a lot, just in his attitude, with school, with friends. He pulled away from us. He pulled away from a lot of the people that he had known and played with and hung out with all through his early years. We saw it getting worse and worse, and as parents that think that everything's okay, we ignored it as much as we could until we finally realized something had to change.
Had he changed his playmates?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Yeah, you got to be careful with playmates and playgrounds. We hear that a lot with people who are suffering from habits, hurts, and hang-ups. So all of a sudden you realize something was wrong. Tell me about that event. Tell me about that moment.
It wasn't actually a moment. It seemed like it came a little at a time. But again, we ignored it as much as we wanted to because we didn't want to face what we were kind of knowing in our heart was happening. Until we started seeing people coming and going in our home that quickly. Cars stopped by late at night.
Oh, yeah.
Then leaving really quickly, and as we'd ask him who those people were, he'd have an excuse. I had to give him a CD. They needed something until we realized this has got to stop.
Was he selling drugs?
We think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Pretty sure. Yeah. So it got to the point where we knew that our home was in danger. We just couldn't have that any longer. And we talked to him. We finally put it right out there, and he admitted it. And he said he needed help.
And how old is he at this point?
He is 23.
23. So from the time that he was 15 to 23, things just basically got out of hand.
Exactly.
So did you guys have a lot of fights in the family and all that kind of stuff?
Some, not tons. Pretty quiet, which again was not at all him.
Right.
He was always the fun-loving, the third-born, which also is something that we learned as we went into this process, that a lot of times it is the last-born of your children or the only child.
Huh.
Again, that he fell right into that category.
Sure. So what'd you guys do?
Well, we started knowing something had to be done. So my husband especially started looking into programs, things that we could maybe do, rehab centers, and it's hard to find something that would fit us or not be in California or somewhere so far away that we would have absolutely zero contact with.
Now, when you say fit us, what does that mean, fit us? Christ-centered or budget-wise or travel-wise or what?
All of those things.
Okay.
We wanted that. We wanted to be able to somewhat have a contact, but we knew that we had to get him out of our home. And
he wanted to go. That was the key. He wanted to go. He wanted help.
To the point that he wanted help. Yes.
Good.
Yes, he did.
So what did you settle in on?
We heard on a radio advertisement, St. Gregory's, and my husband called. We talked with them several different times, and it fit. It was an hour and a half from our home. It was something that we could afford. They took care of it as far as our insurance. They did all of that preparation, all of that calling, because we had never gone down this path, had no idea where to go, and they were wonderful. They took it. They called us. They we had him in a program once we decided that this was where we were going to go in 24 hours.
Wow, good for you.
He was, mm-hmm,
and did it work?
So far, so good.
How long is so far?
Great.
How long has he been clean and sober?
It was June of this past year. So from June until February, we're good.
Now, is he going to any 12-step programs? Is he going to any accountability programs? Is he involved with a men's group or a young person's group at church?
Not right now. That is something we'd like for him to do, but until he makes that decision, we've got several people on hold for that. He has met a couple times with somebody, but so far we've not found a real connection. I know St. Gregory's has a program that he can go to. Again, until he makes that choice to do that, we can't do it. We can't force him to go.
But Diane, he's
and praying that way.
Diane, he's gainfully employed now. He's holding down a steady job, right?
Correct. Yep.
And he has for several months now.
Several months. Yep. Yeah. Ever since he got home, that was one of the prerequisites of him coming back and living at our home, was that he had to go to work every single day. We could not just have him hanging on the couch and sitting around doing nothing, because that's where things go down the wrong path.
As a parent, what was your biggest nightmare in this whole thing?
That we were going to get that midnight phone call, that knock at the door, that he was dead, he had killed somebody, or just he was arrested. Those were the things that and every single night when we went to bed, we wondered if we were going to get that phone call that night.
Yeah.
So
terrifying.
How did your relationship with Christ grow and become restored through this whole thing?
There is no other way. That is the only thing that you can rely on. We knew that Jesus Christ said he would never change. He was the same today, tomorrow, and forever, and that is exactly where we have fallen. We know that is exactly where he is, and we have to trust him in every step. That he had our son's best interest at heart, and he loved us no matter what.
All right, Diane, we very much appreciate you coming on the program today, and we look forward to hearing the entire story sometime soon here on Restoring Hope Live.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Diane.
Thanks, Diane. We see you soon.
All righty.
Bye-bye. Okay, now, another phone number.
Yeah. Let's go, Kathy. It's this is the one that's had an affair, or yeah.
She had the affair.
No, it's her husband.
Her husband had.
Yeah, and it's she's speaking as through somebody else too. One of her best friends had the affair.
I don't understand.
I called her and I said, "We're going to do this. We need a promo. I know that you're dealing with this other couple. I need you to speak as if you're her." She said, "I can do that. As long as I know that she's speaking for somebody else." Does that make sense?
No.
She knows all the affair, but she's speaking. It's like a letter.
So the lady that is the victim of the affair is not the one on the
No, it's her best friend.
Okay.
Yeah. But she's going to be speaking as her. Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thick, you gotta explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old. And her name is Kathy?
Yeah, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy. Are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, Kathy.
We're going to record here 4 or 5 minutes, and just hang with us, please.
Okay.
J. Michael McCoy along with Dr. Mike Hartwig in RestoringHopeLive.com. We appreciate you listening today. We know there's lots of choices that you can choose to listen to on the radio and on the internet, but for whatever reason, God has led you to listen to Restoring Hope today, and we hope that maybe, just maybe, one of the stories, one of the testimonies that you'll hear during our program today will touch you and bring you some restoration in a relationship in your life, maybe a relationship with Christ. Kathy, we appreciate you being here today. I understand you've gone through a terrible situation. When it comes right down to it, your husband committed adultery and had an affair on you.
Yes.
Did you see it coming?
Actually, no. We've been married about 23 years, and we are a military family, and so we traveled around, moved around a lot in our military career, and things were going good, and we had settled in Colorado, and thought this was going to be the place that we would end up forever. And he retired from the military and started a new job, and that's when things kind of changed a little bit.
Children at home at this time?
One at home, two in college.
Okay. And tell me what began to change. I mean, we've got other wives and husbands listening out there. Tell us some of the telltale signs that maybe you noticed in the beginning or maybe you didn't, but tell us what they were.
Well, for me, I think some of the signs were, well, he traveled with this new job that he got in retirement, and he, you know, you just know things about your husband, you know, patterns, you know, when they'll be home, and we were really involved in our life group at church, and he started to pull away from relationships, and he was in a morning men's group, and he pulled out of that, and just things started to change where he kind of was pulling away from other people that were in our circle.
Did you feel him pulling away from you too?
Yeah. I mean, you can tell when the, you know, the intimacy isn't there, or sometimes excuses, or you know, yeah, I could just tell he was distant.
So when was that terrible moment, that terrible day when you knew he was having an affair?
You mean a specific date?
Yeah, I mean, did you catch him in bed together? Did you catch him at a restaurant together? Did he come home with lipstick on his collar?
No, actually, I asked him, and he told me.
What made
I
you...
asked him.
So has he filed for divorce? Is he pushing this, or does he want to work on it?
No, he's not pushing for divorce. We're not there yet. I think a lot of what's keeping us is, and maybe what's keeping us working through it, is the children, and maybe the fact that he's military and cares a little bit about his reputation, and we have a lot of friends that are you know, praying for us, and we've got a circle of friends and men that he was accountable to in the past that are still kind of working on that.
What do you think is the path to get you back together where you have a strong marriage?
Well, you know, I think that, you know, this world offers quick fixes for everything, and I think that he, you know, and I think the things of this world, you know, I know, and I think he knows that they will let him down, and they've let me down. They will continue to let him down. And, you know, I think the fact that we have 3 children that we've raised in a godly Christian home, I'm just praying that he realizes that Jesus is the one constant that will be there for him, that God is, and I say in capital letters, not a momentary feeling like maybe some of the sinful things he's experiencing, and that, you know, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, and that's the promise that I'm resting on, and that, you know, God will bring godly men into his life that will hold him accountable, and, you know, that he will be encouraged by that, and he will just hold to what we have, and my children's faith in him, and that, you know, that will bring him back. People praying for him, loving him, encouraging him.
So, Kathy, what I hear you saying is that you're willing to take him back, and you want to try to make this marriage work. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
I'm resting on, you know, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And, you know, I appreciate programs like this, Restoring Hope, and that, you know, that it gives, you know, it gives people a place that they can come to cling to that, you know, that we can have restoration and hope, and that, you know, I just think surrounding yourself with encouragement from others, whether it be this program, whether it would be, you know, godly encouragers in your life, people in your life group, you know, that's what I'm hanging on to.
Have you forgiven him yet, Kathy?
I think I've forgiven him. I think it's just hard to forget because I just think that, in a marriage like we've been married, like I say, 23 years. And I think that a sin is a sin, and I think I've done things in my marriage, and I don't think necessarily that he is in love with someone else. I think that it's a physical thing, and I'm just hoping that there's enough love there, and that he could remember the love that brought us together, that Christ's love was the center of our marriage.
Wow.
And so I can forgive him. I think it's hard to forget things, but yeah, I think I've forgiven him. I think in order to restore our marriage, I have to be able to forgive to come to that point of restoration. If I want him to come to me, then I think I have to extend that forgiveness to him.
Right.
All right, Kathy, we sure appreciate you joining us this afternoon and helping, you're helping other women who hear your story and they hear your hope and they hear that you love your husband and that you have learned to forgive him. And I think it's also important that you were vulnerable enough to say, but I don't think I've forgotten yet. Because I think that's a tough thing for women to do. Thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
God bless you, Kathy.
Okay, bye-bye.
Nice.
Yep. Becky, who was here.
Mm-hmm.
Mac, that was awesome. God was in the room, and I felt him winking at me. He does that, letting me know he's there. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I'm super excited to give God all the glory.
Sweet.
All right, then the last one is your mother-in-law.
Yeah, but she's coming on as Glenda.
Glenda.
Yeah.
Okay. And she lost her husband.
Yeah, he was a pastor, had diabetes, died of diabetes complications, and she was angry at God. 667.
Let's try to get this done in about 10 minutes, and then we can let Ryan go. So Hamilton was on.
He was on.
Yep.
Rats.
And I'm sure he's off now.
No, he liked it.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he said he loved the setup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good show, he said.
Oh, okay. I just thought Amy went on and on and on.
I know.
We got to figure out how to concise it.
Yeah, that was partially my fault.
I didn't know. I mean, I was waiting for a transition where we could cut it down.
Yeah, and she just.
Yeah.
So that's all right. I'm sure he'll tell me that.
Yeah. Well, I hope he does.
Yeah.
That means we're thinking along the same lines. But if that was a live program, we wouldn't have done that. Hi, Glenda.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm just fine, thank you. How are you today?
Good. Let me introduce you to Mac. Mac's going to take over and give us a lead-in. And let me just remind you, we're just trying to get some sound bites here, and want you to tell your story real quickly. And if you can boil it down to some real nice sound bites and things like that. We don't want you to rush through it, but on the other hand, we don't want you to drag it out either. So, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Here's Mac.
Welcome to another edition of RestoringHopeLive.com. I'm J. Michael McCoy with my co-host, Dr. Michael Hartwig. On Restoring Hope Live, we talk about habits, hurts, and hang-ups, and how in a Christ-centered life and a biblical world, you can find the hope, the restoration in Christ, but also through other people's testimonies. And that's what we hear here. We hear the other stories, the stories of other people who have had a habit, a hurt, or a hang-up that Jesus has come in and healed. Glenda's on the phone with us now. Glenda, how are you?
I'm just fine, thank you.
Now, if I understand things correctly, you were happily married to a wonderful man who was a pastor. How long were you guys married?
We were married 26 years.
And kids?
Yes, we had 2 children, a son and a daughter.
And then one day, without any idea or any inclination, the Lord took your husband home.
That's correct. Yes.
Tell me about that day.
That was a day that maybe we sort of expected because he had been a diabetic for 40 years. He had had 8 heart attacks and a stroke, but he was doing well and still pastoring at the time. I had gone to Walmart, and I come home, and I found him dead in the floor.
Oh, wow.
So it was a very shock at that time, even though he had been ill for a number of years.
So here you are, a young woman, have a couple kids. You're facing life alone, and did that rattle your faith at all?
I don't know that it rattles my faith, but there are so many emotions going on during grief time until it's hard to describe what I went through at that time, because being a pastor's wife, I lived in a parsonage, so I had to move. I had to go to work full time. I had no life insurance, and so I was learning to do things on my own that I had done as a couple.
What would you share to other women who have just now lost their lifelong companion, their partner, their husband? What would you share with them on how to deal with the grief?
First thing is they stay close to the Lord, daily devotion, daily prayer, keep on going to church, serving the Lord. It doesn't get easier, but you learn to deal with it. But only through God's grace can you do that, because there are so many emotions going on. And different people go through different times of emotions. Some take 9 months, some take a year. Mine seemed to take about a 9 months to a year time before I learned to function on my own.
Did you ever get mad at God?
Not mad at God, but I got mad at my husband. Because
why?
he left me here. Okay. He left me here to deal with life, and he was in glory.
So let me get this straight. You were going to, I mean, if you were following your own advice, you were going to church.
Right.
And you were still reading your Bible every day and all that. And
yes.
then when you came home, I mean, didn't you just, to an empty house?
That was very difficult. One of the hardest things was going to church, because my husband had pastored that church.
Oh, yeah.
So I cried all the way to church, and I cried all the way home.
And you still went?
Yes.
Why?
Because I had known the Lord since I was 8 years old, and I knew my only hope to get through it was to stay close to Him.
Wow.
Well, Glenda, we sure appreciate you sharing your story, and it's our belief here at Restoring Hope Live that you telling your story, which is a part of your DNA with God, it's a testimony that He gave you and only you. And when you share it like this publicly, there are husbands and wives and other people out there that hear your strength, hear your commitment, hear your testimony to a relationship with Christ, and you made a positive difference today. And we really thank you for being a part of the show.
Thank you so very much.
God bless you, Glenda.
Thanks, Glenda.
God bless you.
Hey, Glenda, before I let you go, thanks. That's what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this up, try to get some sound bites on it and pass it on. But we'll have you back sometime and tell the full story, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. God bless. Take care.
Bye-bye.